Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of the Fresh Take podcast. My name is Ben, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about how to deal with stress whilst at university. Now, to do that, I am joined by a very special guest and our residential stress expert here at Student Life. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I wouldn't call myself a stress expert, Ben, but I did write a blog post on managing stress and the stress bucket model. I'm Owen Liggins, and I am a first year drug discovery and development chemistry student.
Ooh. So you're a lot more clever than I am, Owen. So thank you for coming on the podcast. Hope you're all right, mate.
I am.
You're being too nice, mate. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. So, in this episode, what we're going to be looking at specifically is how to deal with stress and stressful situations whilst at university. Because if you know anything whilst at university, you can get quite stressed. And as awful as that can sound, it's really important to be able to deal with that stress to ensure that you are the most productive you can be, but also the happiest that you can be while you're enjoying the best 3 years of your life whilst at university. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to start the podcast off, Owen, by talking about the background to stress. Now, obviously, stress can manifest itself in a variety of different ways, and that there are so many different types of emotions that are related to stress. You've got anxiety, you've got anger, there's so many different ways that we as humans deal with stress. So what I want to ask you is, what is your personal experience with stress? What is your interpretation with stress? And why do you think stress is something that people struggle to sort of deal with?
Okay, yeah, right. So I think stress is a really important thing that we all need to get to grips with, of more how we manage it. Because as you say, everyone experiences it differently, but we do all experience it, especially as students. And personally, I used to get really, really stressed when I had all of my deadlines and everything really close together. I wasn't as prepared as I am now, and I had no kind of mechanism of dealing with that. And when it all builds up, that's when, as we'll hear later on, your bucket overflows, you become overwhelmed, and you can't deal with it anymore. And we don't want to get to that point. So what we'll talk about later is some more of the techniques that you can use to reduce your stress so you don't get to that point. And for me, one of the things that I really like to do is go for a run or do some exercise, put a Freshers Take podcast on. Or
well done, Owen, that's right, well done.
You put an episode of a podcast on, watch a film, do some chilling, but we can talk a bit more about that later.
Do you know what? You're doing a better job at this than I am. You're preparing the audience for what they can expect next. You're coming from your job, Owen, I think. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, I think stress for me, and I'm going to say now, as someone who is who brands himself on the Fresh Take podcast as the person that sort of goes, don't worry, it'll all sort itself out. I think this is a topic that's quite close to my heart, because I've dealt with anxiety. I still am dealing with anxiety. I've dealt with stress, especially in my undergrad, and like you said, when deadlines are sort of so close together, it's not a case of, right, okay, I can focus on one thing at a time and sort of work my way through my deadline. Sometimes you have to work on multiple things at once. You have to juggle a part-time job with socializing, with doing your work, with going to lectures and every other thing that you want to do. So I think it is something that is quite hard to overcome, especially if you've never experienced it before, because my assumption always is that if you're at university, you've probably at some point done some sort of higher education. You've done college, you've done A levels, you've gone to sixth form or whatever. So I think people sort of understand the level of stress that you can get, because again, through A levels, when you're juggling, 3 or 4 different exams and different modules and completely different subjects, I guess, it's quite hard to focus on just one thing. Yeah. But I don't know, I think...
Agreed. Oh, no, go. It's very, very different from other levels of education, because when you're doing a varied amount of things at a lower level, it's a different kind of stress to doing one or maybe two subjects at uni in a much higher, more intense level. It's a different kind of stress. Or at least I think it is. As I say, not a stress expert, but I feel like it affects you differently when you're at university than when you're at potentially A levels or college.
Yeah, I agree. I think because a lot of people think, and I believe I've said this again in the podcast, in a previous podcast, that because you're doing sort of one topic that you enjoy. So, for example, you're doing chemistry, was doing media production, now doing journalism. You do something you actually enjoy, so you think, I'm not going to be stressed. It's not the case. I'm really sorry to tell you. I'm really sorry to burst this bubble, but that is literally not the case. Like, if you can go through university without feeling stressed, you are an amazing person, and I think you possess you possess qualities that I only dream of having, because it is hard. Like there's no nice way of saying it. University is a challenge, but it is so rewarding, and I think if you can curb your stress and sort of find ways of dealing with it, then you're going to be so much better off. And obviously
to be able to manage stress, because everything in life that is worth having will at some point involve a level of stress to get there. And it's like everything that's worth having or going for or striving for isn't easy, and those things that aren't easy will at some point involve stress. It could be lots, it could be a small amount, but no matter how much it is, you need to be able to manage it to be able to get you where you want to go in life.
Yeah, so what are your personal experiences with stress then, Owen? Obviously, as a first year going into second year, you've only just started really dipping your toes in the world of university. So how have you found the first year? How have you dealt with stress? And sort of what, looking back, let's say, if you could give advice to yourself, what would it be?
I would say get more organised more quickly. So when I did foundation year last year. And I quickly realised that just winging it when it comes to making lecture notes and doing assessments is not the way to go, because it will eventually all pile up, and then you kind of have a stress mountain that you have to somehow climb and get to the top of. But my advice to myself would be get a handle on it. I did a blog post last year on how you can make to-do lists work for you. And to-do lists are the saviour of my life. I have them on my phone. I have actual post-its that I put over everything that have a to-do list of what I need to get done that week and what I need to get done that day. And once you tick it off, you know that's done. And as soon as I get a new assignment, I write down when it's due, and I have everything that I need to do and when I need to do it written down, so that if I know that if I tick off all of my to-do lists every day, I will have this assessment done at this point, this assessment done at this point, before the deadline, so that I can...
Yeah.
It's a way of managing it so that you don't get stressed about it. And I feel like before I had that mechanism of knowing when it was going to get done, I would stress about the fact that it wasn't going to be done in time, or it wasn't going to be done at all. But knowing that in my head, I know when I'm going to do this, when I'm going to do that, I'm sure in myself that it's going to get done, so I don't need to stress about it not being done.
Yeah, so the fact that you've physically given yourself time to sort of get it done, I guess, you've sort of said, right, well, it's going to get done because it's on the list. Exactly. So there's no need for me to go, oh my God, it's not going to get done because it's on the list of things to do, which I think is a really good way to do it. And, your experiences are very similar to mine, I think. Obviously, as someone who has done a lot of group work and a lot of, productive and hands-on sort of work doing media production and journalism, I think I can relate to you in a very similar way. And, there's nothing worse than trying to let it all pile up, because there's, whilst doing essays, you can I always think juggle at the same time, because it's just a case of getting it written. I think physical, productive, like making a film or making a documentary or making a TV show or graphic design or whatever, you have to physically go out and make it. So, you can't just do it from the comfort of your bedroom. And I think that was my killer of, because I'd like to think I'm quite this, cool, laid back, not cool in that sense. Let's get that out of the way straight away. But yeah, quite a laid back person. I always thought, it'll sort itself out. I've got these dedicated workshop times, and we're meeting outside of those times to, record things or use the TV studios that we have at the University of Lincoln, or go out and film an interview or something. So it was like a lot of the stuff that I had to do was little pieces of a puzzle to then bring together to make a bigger finished product. And I think that was the most stressful thing for me, of understanding that it's not just, you can't just sit down and do it. You have to physically find time to do it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if I was to go back to my first year self, I would say put the drink. No, I'm joking. Put the drink down. No. I would say, yeah, get your head screwed on a little bit quicker than what you did, because you'll realise that it's not. You can't just do one at a time.
Exactly.
I think
from what you said and my own experience as well, you have to have some amount of flexibility as well. Like having a to-do list is great, but for all you know, you could have said that in this day you need to get these 10 things done. But after the first 3, the third thing has taken you 5 times the amount of time you thought it was going to take you, and you can't do the other 7 things on your list. And somehow, some days, that's the way it goes. And you just have to make that work, move those things to another day, spread them out, do whatever you need to do. But especially what you were saying, where you have to go out and do things. Like, for me, group projects, you never know how long a group project is going to take. Like, it could take so many meetings, or it could take 1 meeting. Like, you never know. So you have to have some sort of flexibility. And I know a lot of people, and myself, like to have structure, but you have to try and find a balance between having a structure and knowing what's going on, but also factoring in the inevitable things that...
Just life, I guess,
It is life, that sometimes it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. So you have to kind of expect the unexpected in a way.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, it goes back to what you were saying about your stress bucket, which again we'll talk about in a lot more detail in a second. But it's like if you allow that to get to a point where it's like almost full, but then you're stressed about stressing, like you said, if you haven't factored in that life is so unpredictable, I think that's a way of getting you more stressed. So I think it really is a balancing act, and I think that perfectly sort of goes into the stress bucket analogy and how to relieve stress. So do you want to just talk very briefly about what the stress bucket is and what your blog post was about?
Yeah, so basically the stress bucket was a model that was invented in 2002, and it symbolises the bucket itself is meant to be the amount of stress that you can deal with. So one person's stress bucket might be a lot bigger or a lot smaller than somebody else's. So how much stress you can deal with is your bucket itself. And then everything that causes you stress, it could be assignments, it could be relationship issues, it could be financial pressures, it could be health concerns, it could be all sorts of stuff. They are taps pouring into your bucket. And eventually, what could happen is if you let those taps get too much, your bucket could overflow. And that's what we don't want. So what we need to do to stop that from happening is poke loads of holes in the bottom of our bucket so that this extra water can be removed and the stress can dissipate. Or what you want is to create a bucket that has so many holes in it that as the stress comes in, it doesn't fill up before it goes out. So things that could be holes in your bucket could be practicing mindfulness, going for exercise, actually taking time to enjoy the things that you're doing. It could be talking to your friends and family. There's all sorts of ways that you can put holes in your bucket. But the idea is you want to not allow your bucket to overflow.
Well, I mean, that literally is perfect. It sort of highlights everything that we've talked about and again, segues perfectly into how we personally can relieve stress and deal with stress. Because, again, like I've said 17 different times already, that everyone will experience it differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all. What we're saying now is just our experiences. We're not saying, do this and you'll be fine. Because if that was the case, then someone would have packaged that thought up and sold it for hundreds of thousands of pounds, because I personally would definitely buy it, especially with the amount of stress that you get in life, because life is never stress-free. As much as I think everyone would love no drama, no worries, it's just not viable. Or at least in my life, you might be really lucky and be like, yeah, everyone loves me, I love everyone.
I can wish.
Yeah, stress-free life would be just absolutely ideal. So I'll ask you first then, Owen. How do you personally poke holes in your stress bucket? What do you do? What are your key things that sort of signify, right, I'm getting stressed, I need to start poking some holes in the bucket?
Oh, I don't know what necessarily would signify. Something I feel like when. Do you ever feel like your mind is just you can't think properly because you've got too many
Yes.
things going on?
Oh, that's just me normally, mate. I've nothing between the ears. I'm just hollow.
But
But
when
no,
I
I get
when
what you mean. Yeah.
I can't think properly, and if I'm so what I spoke about in the blog post and in also my blog post for to-do lists, sometimes is research has shown that if you're not organized, when you're say you have two assignments and you're doing one of them, if you've not organized what you're going to do for the other one, while you're trying to do one, your brain is too busy thinking about the other one. Whereas if you've set out, oh, I'm going to do this assignment on this day and this assignment on this day, your brain knows that your other assignment is going to be gotten to at some point, so it doesn't need to worry about it now, and it lets you focus
Yeah.
on what you need to be doing at that point in time. And when my brain is thinking about way too many things, I know I'm not going to get anything done because it's not actually focusing on the thing that I need to do. So
Yeah.
normally, if I when I get really stressed, I have to get away from whatever I was doing before. So that could be going for a walk up steep hill, or going for a run down the
Ooh.
canal. Absolutely love
Okay.
going down the canal for a run
Yeah.
because I have an affinity for water. I've been like I used to swim all the time, but I can't really in Lincoln.
Oh.
But I absolutely love swimming, and being near water for me is just the most calming thing. So I love walking down the canal, seeing the water, seeing all the waves, seeing all the swans little swim along. But for me, that pokes a massive hole in my bucket because it kind of it slows some of the taps down as well because it's removing all of
Yeah.
these stressing factors. But then it's also taking you to a place where you feel calm.
Yeah. Well, mate, that sounds. You seem to. Like, I'm going to go back to it. You are the stress expert. Like what you've said there. I'm sat there like I feel like I've just been counselled. I feel like I've just been told the secrets of life. Like I know how to. I can do anything now. No, it's ace, mate. What you're talking about, and I love the fact as well that you know almost find like a happy place and sort of go right. I love water. I have an affinity to water, so that's where I'm going to go to sort of calm myself down. And I think being in and around Lincoln and Lincolnshire and East Lindsey and stuff, there are a lot of lovely like beaches and things you can go to. And again, you've got the canal, you've got the Brayford. You know, we've got so many really lovely picturesque places in Lincoln that really will allow you to take your mind off things. And I think that is a fantastic one. And going back to what you were saying a second ago about when you can't think properly, I never really realised this until sort of the beginning of my masters, so sort of September, October last year, and especially during the pandemic and stuff. Like it's been really hard to focus my thoughts. But when I have got 15 different things to do and I haven't physically written them down or categorised them, or I actually really know what I'm doing, my mind can get so clouded with stress. Like I don't know if you can see, but I'll try and spin around so you can see. I have a whiteboard behind me, effectively, is what I'm trying to say. But on my door, I've just spent 2 seconds trying to look like an absolute moron. But yeah, behind me, I'll go this way. I have a whiteboard behind me, and I never used it for when I was at undergraduate, especially when I lived in Lincoln. I buy a whiteboard every year, and I'm going to use it. I never ever used it. So for my masters, I thought, right, I'm going to take this a little bit more seriously, and I started to write down every deadline I've got, everything I need to do for that deadline. Have I done it? Have I not done it? You know, little notes and things, and that has actually helped me relieve my stress like so much because I'm not
100%.
sat there going, I'm not sat there typing and then going, I've got the other module. Oh, what have I got to do for that one? Because I've got it written down. I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I think when you said that, it really manifested with me that yeah, this is really helpful. And I've got a notebook here as well that I just write like useless little notes in.
Yeah.
Things that I just need. And I never did this in undergrad. Never really used one of these, and it's actually been one of the best things to have because again, if you have a thought, you can just write it down
I have a
instead
pack
of
of
going,
post-its in the top drawer of my desk. So whenever
yeah.
I have a moment or there's something that I think of that I need to do, or there's something popped up that's really important that someone's mentioned, or something I think of that I need to remember, I write it down, shove it on my desk, so that next time I'm at my desk, I know that I'll see it again.
Yeah, it's physically there, so you
Yeah.
haven't got to rethink what it was. It's already
And
there.
one
Yeah.
thing that I found really, really useful that I know not a lot of people look at is most courses. I know within the School of Chemistry, I'm not sure about your school,
Mm.
provide an assessment map on Blackboard.
All right.
So for our assessment maps, had it in the foundation year, had it this year, it tells you all of your assessments, the deadlines, the deadlines, what you need to do for each one, and the weighting of your module,
Oh
of how
wow.
much of the module you get. So the way they normally what they do as well at the top is it has a number of weeks and what's covered in each week in terms of assessments. So
Yeah.
what I did last year was I had that pinned up on my wall in my
Mm.
accommodation, and every week I got a highlighter and I highlighted out one of the blocks of the weeks. So I knew what week I was at uni, but I also knew how far I'd gone through my assessment.
Oh,
So you
okay.
could see, because that's in front of my desk every day, I could see, in 2 weeks' time, I have this lab report and this essay due, and you can kind of begin to manage that in. And I have the same thing this year for all of my modules. I have my assessment maps tucked into my drawer so that I can just pull them out, highlight them off, and I know what's happening.
I think that's a really good thing though, because again, all you're doing is you're allowing yourself to not get stressed because you know exactly what you need to do that week instead of
Exactly.
just sort of flustering and being like, oh my god, I've got so much to do. And like, I don't do any of this. I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I don't. I know what I need to do for things. Hence why I
Yeah.
use the
Not
whiteboard
everyone
and my
will need
notes
to
and
do
stuff.
it. People are very
Yeah,
different, and everyone's stress buckets are different. Some people could have a stress bucket the size of like, I don't know, a huge paddling pool. Other people could
yeah,
have a stress bucket the size of a thimble. Like
yeah,
people, we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences growing up. We've all learned to manage it differently, and I think the university seems to be very understanding that you,
yeah.
university can cause you stress, and there is a lot of support to help you that can be accessed through well-being. They do all sorts of stress workshops that people can go to, and we also do have a few posts and I think a few videos on student life about stress that people can go and look at if they do need more resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a big sort of big alert to say that there is support if you need it. It's
100%.
not just a case of talking to flatmates or talking to friends. There are genuine people, genuine practitioners that can help you, especially at the University of Lincoln. You've got the student support services, which you can, if you just give it a Google, if you're not 100% sure where they are, that'll come straight up. You've also got the medical centre that's located just to the right of the Stephen Langton building. Again, if you're from the University of Lincoln, you'll know where that is. It's next to the Swan, because everyone knows where the Swan is. It's the pub. Everyone knows where that is. Literally to the left of that is the medical centre. So if you do need help with stress, it's important to note. Thank you for reminding me, Owen, that there are there if you need them. And I'm just going to quickly go back to what you were saying of how you deal with stress, because obviously we've looked at what you do. I think I'm going to just throw my 2 pence into the conversation that I'm a big believer in. And again, I've said this so many times, like, it'll be fine, it'll sort itself out. And whilst that is the case for some things, probably 50% of my problems do sort themselves out. If I've had a bad day, I'll go to sleep and I'll be fine because it was just a problem that day. But for me, I love fitness. I love running. I love going
Yeah.
to the gym. I love that sort of stuff. And I've realised, because I've when we're recording this is the first week that restrictions have been lifted in the UK. So as of the 12th of April, non-essential shops, gyms, swimming pools have all reopened. And this week more than ever has made me realise how much I've missed the gym and how sort of easy it is to get cloudy vision and sort of this tunnel vision of stress. And going to the gym and lifting some weights, going for a run, whatever it is that I'm doing, is a massive weight off me.
I 100% get
Pardon the
you.
pun.
When I was doing A levels, I would go for a swim every single
Yeah,
Wednesday, 8 o'clock. I would go to my local pool. I would do 100 lengths of the pool, and
yeah.
I did that for the 40 years that I did my A levels. And I
Oh
knew
wow.
that that was the time that I had every single week where I could go,
Mm.
not think about work, not think about everything, and it 100% just clears your mind. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And I always say, when people ask me about swimming, I'm like, if I didn't do my swimming at that point in time, I feel like my brain would have literally exploded because
Well, you just got into overdrive, like,
because
no,
you're
I'm not doing
thinking
this
about
anymore.
so much all of the time. And the
Yeah,
same is true at university. Your brain is constantly processing so much. It needs to have time to relax and to not
yeah,
actually think. Because I don't know about you when you're in the gym, but when I'm swimming, it's very repetitive and you don't have to think
yeah.
about it that much. You can
Yeah, you
kind
can
of
sort of just
you
switch
just
off,
do
can't you?
you
Your body
switch off, you
just,
do your thing, and your brain can just relax and not
yeah,
think about anything that's stressing. And it's like even when you're sleeping, your brain is processing what you've been thinking throughout the day. So even
yeah,
when you're sleeping, your brain and your subconscious is still thinking about everything that's going on. But for me,
yeah,
when I go swimming, my mind is just clear, and I focus on doing my strokes and breaking my PBs and trying to
yeah.
better that, and I don't need to worry about anything else that's going on.
Yeah, stress at that point just sort of disappears, and it's the
Yeah,
same with me. Like when I'm lifting weights or doing whatever it is, I feel like I'm almost the built up frustration and the tension is sort of taken out on that lift. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like when you're lifting or when you're swimming, you are thinking about it, but you're not thinking about it. If that
yeah,
makes sense, like
100%.
you're thinking about the movement, you're thinking about the muscles that you're working, but you're not actually thinking I'm lifting a weight.
Yeah.
And for me, that sort of aggression and just pushing and pulling and jumping and running and is a great exertion of energy, which I translate from stress.
And I feel
And I
like
think it's just
getting
an
that
amazing.
energy out is really, really important. And you
Yeah.
can get that energy out in all sorts of ways. It doesn't have to be exercise. You could get that
Oh yeah.
energy out through interpretive dance or through
Oh yeah. It's
painting a
whatever you
really
fancy.
beautiful picture. But you can get that energy out in all sorts of ways. But I 100% get what you're saying with exercise, even though I've said
Yeah.
100% 1,000 times. I do get what you mean. So when I
Yeah.
go
And
running, sometimes if I'm stressed or I'm listening to a song, and I don't know about you, but I really connect with music, and I'm very much
yeah.
like lyrics mean a lot to me in certain
Yeah.
songs. And when certain songs come on and I'm feeling stressed, and the lyrics relate to something that I'm stressed about, there's certain times where I've just like yeeted myself down the Brayford because certain lyrics of a song have come on, and I'm like, ah. But
Yeah.
you just
Shot down there.
literally,
Yeah.
you just get it out, and you feel so much better once you've kind of exerted that energy, and then you're kind of dying at the end because your legs are like, what have you just done to me? And as an asthmatic, my lungs are kind of caving in at that point. But sometimes,
But it was the music that made you do it.
I know,
Yeah.
but you have to get that energy out. Just be safe
Yeah.
while you're getting that energy out.
Do you know what? I never ever thought I would hear the word yeeted in a Fresh Take
Well,
podcast. So I'm here.
there's a
I'm here
first
for that.
time for
That's great.
everything, then.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move on now, Owen, to sort of the last little section, and we're going to go over this quite briefly. But I think it's an interesting topic to look at. We're going to get a little bit deeper to it because we've looked at what stress is. We've looked at that it's sort of a negative. It has negative connotations of like if you're stressed, you're doing too much. If you're stressed, you're overthinking. If you're stressed, that might cause anger and anxiety to flourish a little bit more in your emotions and in your personal life. But is stress actually a good thing? Now, I had a little think about this because I thought it's a good thing to add into the podcast episode. And again, I'm going to go over it a little bit briefly. But if you want to listen more, there'll probably be loads of articles and things that you can read, not only on Student Life, but also if you just jump down the rabbit hole of YouTube. And I personally think that stress is inherently a good thing because it means that you are out of your comfort zone and you are experiencing a high performance or expecting a high performance from yourself. If you live your entire life in your comfort zone and never having to worry or stress about anything, are you necessarily progressing forward? Like
Yeah,
I'm a big advocate for positive mental attitudes and
yeah,
mindfulness and things. And I think sometimes you have to put a positive spin on things, and that positive spin is, in fact, stress is actually meaning that you not only care about something, but you're also pushing yourself to exertion, whether that be
yeah.
mentally, physically, emotionally. I think it's a good thing.
So I feel like it gives you a driving force, and although sometimes the driving force can push you too hard and you end up burning out, and that's when your bucket overflows, and that's what we don't want. But having your bucket somewhat filled isn't a bad thing, because I feel
Mm.
like we all need varying levels of stress. Otherwise, as you say, we're not going to get anywhere. And it gives. I don't want to say stress gives meaning to things, but if you have to work hard to do something, and it's hard to do, it means more once you've done it. And I feel like if you, as you say, if we didn't have to experience stress and everything was plain sailing really easy, I feel like things wouldn't mean as much as they do now because it's just easy and everyone can do it. But that's not the nature of life. The nature of life is that we experience stress. We just have to learn to manage it in a way that works for us.
Yeah. Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, mate. And again, that perfectly wraps up that stress maybe isn't always a negative. So what we're going to jump into now is the final segment of the podcast, which is today's exercise for the podcast episode. And Owen, I'm going to leave this one to you because again, you've talked about the stress bucket in your article, and you've also included a little exercise as well. Do you want to explain that again very briefly to the beautiful listeners of the Fresh State podcast?
Yeah. So if you go ahead to the article, shameless plug there. Research has shown that breathing can be a great way to manage your stress. And the Student Wellbeing Centre released a great thing that you can see on the post about box breathing. So that is the exercise for this podcast. It's really easy. You just inhale your breath for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for 4 more seconds. And then you exhale for 4 seconds. And then you pause for 4 seconds before breathing again. So it's 4 sets of 4. So inhale, hold, exhale, pause. And you can just repeat that for as many times as you need. But box breathing and other breathing techniques have been shown to kind of help you get a better control of your breathing and of your stress.
There we go. A fantastic, very simple exercise that can help you stress, because I guess it's that thing of detaching yourself from the situation, taking a second to sort of breathe and not worry and sort of just relax and think, almost reflection. And that is today's episode. That is today's episode wrapped up. We've there's been highs, there's been lows, there's been laughs. Owen's even said the word yeeted. So it really has been a complete package, the Fresh State podcast today. Of course, as always, as I always say at the end of every podcast, make sure if you want more content like this, some fantastic articles, some fantastic videos, make sure you stay locked to the University of Lincoln Student Life socials. We've got a website, which is URL, which is studentlife.lincoln.ac.uk. I always get that mixed up, even though I'm always on it. We've got YouTube, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, we've even got TikTok.
So if you want to see
TikTok, Ben. Yeah, if you want to see me doing some stupid dances, I'll probably be on there at some point. I think I have actually done one with Becky. It was a stupid little dance. If you fancy it, give it a look. And all of our usernames on social media are UOL Student Life. That's no spaces. That's UOL Student Life. Because I think personally, the University of Lincoln produces some of, if not the best, student-based content available to any person. So if you want to check it out, all of the information is available to you. And I believe they're always in the description of every video and podcast that you listen to. So that's where you go for the next episode. But that is it from me. I hope you have enjoyed. Have you enjoyed yourself, Owen?
I have. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to throw in there, as we mentioned, there's loads of support that you can get from the university. But if you also want external support to manage your stress or manage your mental health, if you go onto the article on managing stress, which will hopefully be in the description or in the show notes on whatever you're listening to, whatever you're listening on. If you scroll to the bottom of that article, there's a link to Heads Together and their Get Support page, which is a great way. It has all sorts of external support that's available for everything from stress to anxiety. It's for everyone, and that's 24-hour support if you need it, and that's external if you feel like you need external support.
Yeah, because you got to remember, guys, there is always support available to you, whether you need it or whether you don't. So it's always good to have that in. But from me, Ben, and from Owen, thank you very much for watching or listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and as always, we'll see you next time.
Bye.